Let's get started. All right, thanks everyone for joining. Today we're going to be talking about our newest product innovation, Service Pro Route Optimization, or how you may hear about it from time to time or throughout this presentation is SPRO. So just know Service Pro Route Optimization is kind of where that sits. Today I'm joined by Tyler Hart, solution engineer here at MSI Data, who's going to be co-presenting with me. I'll kick things off, and then we'll pass to Tyler for a couple of slides, and then definitely a live demonstration of the new route optimization capability within the Service Pro platform. So let's jump right in. I'm going to start with an agenda, just kind of walk you through what we're going to be covering today. So we'll kick off and talk through just routing, right? Let's define it. What is it, right? And then some of the issues that you all are facing today when it comes to proper routing or having the most efficient routes for your service jobs and your technicians. Then we're going to go into the solution, right? The enhancement and the new capability that we've rolled out here within the last month. Benefits of just route optimization and routing technology in general. So Tyler's going to take us through some of the benefits and like metrics and KPIs that you can expect to be improved through proper routing or a route optimization solution such as Service Pro Route Optimization. And then he's going to take you through a live walkthrough. We're going to walk you through the technology, and then we can do a little Q&A at the end. So let's kick things off with the definition. Excuse me. Route optimization, right? You can see my little buddy in the bottom right corner here. AI helped create this through a little bit of research, but I think this definition, as we look at what is route optimization, really hits home. So it's the process of using algorithms, right, and software to plan and adjust travel routes for maximum efficiency, minimizing factors like time, fuel costs, and operational expenses while ensuring timely and successful completion of tasks or service. So just wanted to ground us in what is route optimization. It definitely gets thought of as many different things. When you hear the word route optimization, people have started to bring different sort of scheduling factors in, because scheduling and routing are two tasks that are usually tied to the hip, but are definitely two very separate things. And so today we're going to be focused on, route optimization specifically. So this is just a definition of it, but I think it gives you a good grasp of the majority of what this encompasses. So let's go into, a few of the factors or problems that the industry or you all are facing when it comes to routing your jobs or your appointments, your service orders, and your technicians properly. So why is it a challenge? Right? Well, it's not easy, right? There's inefficient route planning for service appointments. This is put on the service writer, the dispatcher, home office employee of some sort, right? To what? Just know where the jobs are compared to where the technicians are. Yeah, that could work. That could work, and it has for a long time. But it definitely could use some improvement, right? And that's why you see all these different routing technologies popping up. There's just whole business models built off of routing in general. But then folks like MSI Data are bringing it into their field service management technology platform to help those service writers and those dispatchers to efficiently dispatch those jobs. So just inefficient planning, right? What's the easiest way to plan when you have 10 to 100 technicians and 10 to 100 jobs or more, right, to dispatch in a day, in any given day or week? What's the most efficient route? It's a difficult task to put on an individual for sure. High operating costs for field service organizations. Tyler's going to talk about some of the ones more on the positive side of what can be impacted, but think of things like time of that dispatcher. Could be things like fuel, something that's probably overlooked until it becomes a major problem is wear and tear on a vehicle, right? If you could extend the life of a vehicle by just routing properly, would you take advantage of that capability? Probably, right? Assets and vehicles are a high expense for sure. And so if we can prolong the life of a vehicle that a technician is traveling in by just properly, routing them so that they're not driving across the city back and forth in any one given day, and they're doing things in the right order, or the most optimal order, it definitely has positive impacts around just the operating costs for a field service organization. Then it's the end client or the end customer who you're servicing as a service organization, right? The increasing demands, right? Hard to deliver on, high satisfaction at all times, but with proper routing, right? Getting to the job on time. When you route in advance, you also make sure that those technicians have the right parts, right? They know where they're going. They have all the information they need before they leave, right? So if you plan the route in advance, everyone knows where they're going. They can plan appropriately prior to leaving or prior to being dispatched. That's definitely going to have a positive downstream impact on the customer experience, right? And those demands aren't going down, as we all know, as I know of someone who helps lead a sales organization. The demands of clients are definitely continuing to increase. So just those increasing demands, being able to deliver on the value that you are putting out there as a service organization, right, to hopefully maintain and improve and deliver on high customer satisfaction. Next, techs and employee satisfaction, right? When we think about just a technician, if we could help them free up 1 hour a day by reducing travel time, you don't think your technician's going to be happier? Because one of two things is probably going to happen. They're ending their day earlier so they can go to their family or go deal with their personal lives. That's a positive, right? But probably not always the most likely. But the other alternative is you're going to be able to put them on another appointment before the end of the day. And what's that going to do for them? It's going to get them paid more, right? They're going to be able to deliver more value to the organization, which means bottom line to them, they're going to get paid more because they're going to get more work done in a given day. So the employee satisfaction, right? When we think about the technician, but if I just flip over to the employee part, just think about that service writer, that dispatcher, right? Or team of folks that have to remember where all those jobs are, the locations are, where the different assets that might be required, what parts are needed, where's the closest technician. Technology definitely can help that employee have a much better time and a more efficient time getting those jobs planned properly based on travel time and routing. Tyler's going to dig into the service metrics and KPIs, but when you think about things like travel time, that can be reduced. When you think about just overhead costs, wear and tear, fuel, etc., that's a metric that you should be tracking as a service organization so you can properly plan for the future. But then it's just first time fix rate, right? If you don't plan the route properly, there's a chance that maybe your technician won't have the right inventory or parts on their truck to get the job done. Then you got to spin up a second truck roll, right? The first time fix rate, which is the KPI or metric, definitely will suffer. And so Tyler's going to dig into a few of these, but definitely service metrics and KPIs that you all are tracking are definitely impacted by, improper routing and can be improved through an optimized route as you plan out your day, week, month, right, for your clients. Speed and scalability, right? It just makes you faster, right? It gets the jobs on the schedule board faster in the proper route, dispatch technicians faster, jobs get done faster, right? And you can just scale as a business much more efficiently through proper routing. Again, I know I'm being a little dramatic around the point, but the key is, just through a couple clicks of a button, which you're going to see later in the webinar that Tyler's going to show you, it can have a lot of positive impact downstream. It may look simple, because that's the point of how we've created this experience and how the technology has been put together. But the downstream effects and impacts it's going to have on your business, your team, your customers, it's pretty significant for sure. So I just want to talk about some of the challenges we heard from customers just like you, from our current customers, from the market, which kind of then I want to transition into some of the market research that helped us kind of go through this. So if you've joined any MSI Data or Service Pro webinar in the past, you've heard about this idea around jobs to be done, right? It's a Harvard Business Review study that was done a while ago that basically takes the philosophy of you're not buying a technology, you're hiring the technology to get a job done that you need fulfilled. And so I wanted to break down The life of a work order, right? As we hear from the market, from our customers, we talked to several hundred different service organizations across this study, and we broke down the life of a work order where our customers were struggling into 13 very significant job steps or tasks that they are trying to fulfill. Now, today we're focused on job step number 4, which is labeled as minimizing the cost of travel through efficient scheduling and routing. We're going to lean into the routing side of that, but from the market research we did, we definitely heard that many customers were struggling with this in their day to day, right? And so if we could help impact or improve the quality of life and business in any way, and this is the one we're going to focus on today. So as we work through the different steps of a service order or a work order, there's about 13 critical areas that a field service management platform such as ServicePro helps deliver value or improve the experience of your organization for your customers. We're going to focus on job step number 4, which again is all around the scheduling and routing aspects of the business. And so, with that said, I believe this is my time to pass the microphone over to my buddy Tyler, who's going to start walking you through the Service Pro solution, Service Pro route optimization. Tyler, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. So when we think about Service Pro route optimization, or you also may hear SPRO, it's an intelligent routing engine that actually generates the most efficient schedule based on travel distance. It's embedded right within Service Pro, and it looks at really three main factors when it tries to plan out and build routes. It looks at the appointments or the work that needs to be scheduled. It looks at technicians or the folks in the field that we need to plan routes for. And then, of course, it looks at the date in which we want to plan out routes. And so, taking those three core factors into the main train of thought, it then uses its algorithms and engine to efficiently plan out routes in a way that, to Andrew's point, minimizes the cost of travel and helps gain efficiency through better scheduling. Now, with Service Pro route optimization, some of the questions that we get asked is, what are some of the ways that it actually affects our business, right? How does it affect our service operations? Well, there's a few ways that it does that. So when we think about, better planned routes, more efficient scheduling, there are many ways that it can affect your business and organization, but some of those more critical ways and some of the ways that we think about profitability drivers are what we see listed here. That first one being technician utilization. And so when we think about we're letting Service Pro guide us through better planned routes, well, typically that then means that there's less windshield time between jobs. Well, that then gives us time back to put towards billable activity, which therefore then drives utilization. Of course, with that said, there can also be further billings, right? We're performing more billable work. That helps us then generate maybe more invoices and get those sent out the door. The next metric that we typically see is, a reduced average time of travel between jobs. And with that comes some other benefits, right? The cost of travel. And so by being able to better plan routes in a way that you've got closer proximity between jobs, customers have closer proximity to one another, it then reduces that windshield time. And so we're not spending as much money on fuel. There's less wear and tear on our fleet. But along with that, because as a technician, we don't have to drive so much and we're not passing other technicians on our team on the road, there's higher morale because we're not sitting driving so much between jobs. The third way in which we see a business being affected by schedule optimization is lower overhead. And so if we put our shoes on as, say, a coordinator, we're spending less time having to manually plan out routes for our technicians. We don't have to go into, say, a Google Maps or any sort of platform there similar, and we don't have to throw in customer locations and then try and take that and put it back into our schedule board. There's less time spent doing all of that because now it's just click of a button. Service Pro is going to plan out that route and do all that heavy lifting for us. And so we can spend our time elsewhere, right? Maybe that's following up with a customer on an invoice, or maybe helping a customer address some of their questions. As part of that lower overhead as well, I kind of already mentioned this, but lower maintenance costs on the fleet, right? When we've got less wear and tear because our vehicles aren't traveling so far every day, well, that reduces that cost of maintaining that fleet and helps us maybe take that capital and put it elsewhere in the business. The last major metric that we see tied typically around profitability, Andrew had mentioned this earlier in our time together, but customer satisfaction, because now that we're letting Service Pro take into account what work orders need to be scheduled, and it's taking that data, making it in a more efficient manner, well, now we can meet those customer SLAs and promise dates. And so with all that said, those are just some of the metrics that we see affected by schedule optimization. What it really boils down to, though, is through optimization, your operations are going to find increased accuracy as well as increased speed. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, this goes back to if we think about that coordinator example, where when we think about accuracy of a schedule, well, we no longer have to rely on sort of the tribal knowledge processes of scheduling. We don't have to rely on, hey, I need to manually key in a customer address into my mapping application. Then I need to take that, go back into my scheduling solution, take that work order, schedule it out. Those are all these added touches to a work order that frankly, we just don't need anymore because through optimization, again, we can just click a button and the route optimization algorithm and engine will do that for us in a more accurate fashion. Because it's click of a button, it kind of goes without saying, but there's an increased speed. If we think about, hey, it takes us maybe hours, a couple of hours to plan out an entire work week worth of schedules. Uh, well, that's because we have to drag and drop and we have to rearrange. And again, we have to make those decisions in our brain, whereas we don't have to do that anymore. Route optimization will make those decisions for us. So, if I'm a coordinator and maybe I have to call in sick one day, well, someone else can then step in. And so we see those two main benefits of accuracy and speed because we're no longer relying on tribal knowledge to make those scheduling decisions. Now, with all that said, we've done a lot of talking, right? What are some of the challenges that we address as an organization today through some of those pain points and challenges when trying to plan out the best routes for our technicians? We started there, but then we got into what are some of the benefits of route optimization? Now we're just going to take a look at it and see how does this all come together. And so when we think about route optimization, as I had mentioned earlier, might have to share my screen here. We are still seeing it. Perfect. So when we think about route optimization, it's actually embedded within Service Pro. We had mentioned this earlier. And so again, from a coordinator perspective, when you're working within Service Pro, you still have the ability to schedule your technicians. And so within Service Pro, we have our scheduler, which is what we see on screen. We have our technicians listed along the left. We have their schedules across the board. And down at the bottom of the screen is the work that needs to be scheduled out. And so if I'm a coordinator, I could very well take some of that work and just drag and drop and assign it to one of my technicians, just like that. Great. But we want optimization to, again, make this more accurate and more speedy, right? Especially if we've got maybe hundreds of appointments and a whole bunch of different technicians. So how do we let Service Pro do that scheduling for us? Well, that's where from this screen, if I'm a coordinator, I can just go up top to where there is a blue optimize button. When we click that optimize button, this is where now as a coordinator, I can make a couple of decisions. First, which technicians do I want to plan routes for? Now, this is especially helpful if I'm a coordinator and, my organization is split between installs, maintenance, and repairs. Maybe I only want to plan out routes for my repair technicians. Well, this is where I can make that decision factor and I can set up that filter. And so I can now choose which technicians I want to plan routes for. As we hit save, the next question is, what date do I want to plan routes and build out a schedule for? And so along the right-hand side, we'll just quickly toggle that date because we've already got this week good to go. Let's plan out next week. So we'll change the date. Now the question is, which appointments do we want to optimize against those 3 technician schedules? And that's where at the bottom of the screen now we've got a queue of work that needs to be scheduled out. And we could very well filter it. So if I just want to maybe throw inspections, I would just check the box next to those appointments. Or maybe it's just my planned maintenance appointments. Great, I could find and just check those individual boxes. But otherwise, in this case, maybe we just want to say, hey, take the whole queue of work and throw it against your algorithm. And so what we've done now is we've said, okay, optimizer, we've got 3 technicians, we've got 25 appointments in this case. Build out the best and most optimal and efficient schedule for October 8th. We'll hit run. What goes on in the background now is Service Pro is going to take all those appointments, in this case 25, and it's going to plan the most efficient route for those 3 technicians. Again, looking at labor utilization and the average cost and time of travel between jobs. As it does that, it will propose a schedule, and that proposed schedule will be highlighted in yellow, which is what we see on screen. Of course, there are some outliers sometimes. Maybe there's a bad customer address that wasn't entered properly, or maybe there's an appointment that just doesn't even fit. Hey, these 3 technicians, their service area is Wisconsin, and you tried optimizing an appointment based in Florida. Well, that's where there are conflicts, and the optimizer is smart enough to recognize those conflicts. So along the right-hand side, for any appointment that it couldn't optimize, it'll tag it as a conflict. More importantly, though, if we focus in on this proposed schedule here now, it was click of a button, right? We didn't have to make these scheduling decisions. And we can now take that information and along the right-hand side, we can hit accept all. Of course, if we're looking at this and we're saying, actually, this customer, they told us maybe don't send that technician. Of course, you can always override whatever the optimizer proposes. But otherwise, we click the button to hit optimize. It builds out our most efficient routes. We hit accept and apply, and this will now dispatch those appointments to our technicians. Real quick, before we leave this window, the last element to this is I had mentioned those conflicts, and that's where too, if it hits a conflict, it'll provide further description of why it couldn't route. But otherwise, what we've now done here is as a coordinator, we've leveraged the optimization embedded within Service Pro to build out a route that's most efficient based on location between jobs. As we hit apply here now, we could go ahead, plan out a different day if we wanted to. But that is Service Pro route optimization. And it's with that that we'll actually now open it up for questions. And so, Andrew, I'll send it back over to you and see if there are any questions in the chat here today.
You got it. All right. Thanks, Tyler. Let me take a look at the chat. Let's see what we have. All right. I see one. Well, let's just take them as they come. Okay. So the first question is actually is pretty important because I've heard this other technologies have struggled with this. So let's just tee it up for us. So does the Service Pro route optimization respect already scheduled appointments, Tyler?
It does. It does. So let's say you already have, planned maintenance tied to a customer agreement. You already have that scheduled on a technician's calendar. That's locked in. You don't want to change it. The optimizer will work around it. So yeah, that's an example that we've come across in some cases with other technologies is where it'll optimize everything and then you're left having to go clean it back up. That's not the case here. It'll optimize around any appointment that you already have locked in there.
Awesome. This next one's for me, so I'll say it and then I'll take it, so I won't put you on the spot.
Good.
How are you licensing Service Pro route optimization for your customers? So that's a good one. So we talked about this with several different folks as we went through our process and testing and program that we went to develop the product. We decided on licensing it by customer, right, or tenant, right? When you think about what the optimizer is doing or what the technology is allowing for, we are a subscription-based model, user-based licensing like most SaaS organizations. But when it comes to certain capabilities, Service Pro route optimization being the one we're talking about now, we license it by customer or by tenant right? So if you have one service pro agreement with one tenant tied to one customer, which is pretty common, it would be licensed that way. So good question. All right. Got one. We got another one. Well, you did demo this, but let's do it anyway. Is there an ability to reject the proposed appointments?
There is. Yep. You could hit reject all, reject everything. Otherwise, you can reject individual appointments that are proposed as well.
Yeah, perfect. All right. And for the person that asked that, if you still have questions on it, this is recorded. We will be putting this out. You absolutely can watch the demo again, and you can see that, Tyler showed during the live walkthrough that there was the ability to accept, reject one by one or in bulk. Right. Last question that I'm seeing as of right now is, let's say, Ty, this one's for you, Ty. I'm gonna let you take it. Can I optimize multiple days?
You can. So in the example that we just did, we did it for the 8th, but then once those are applied, we could then go to the 9th and then rerun optimization with any appointments that aren't already scheduled. So you can very well optimize against multiple days as you apply those scheduled appointments.
Awesome. Let me double check, make sure there's no other questions. All right. I think we are good. Well, we're pretty much right at time. We're a little early, which is okay. That's what we had prepared for everyone today. We wanted to go out and show you what the route optimization technology and capability within the Service Pro platform looked like, what it felt like. We had a few good questions, so I appreciate those. As you can see, there's a QR code here. The QR code will lead you to a form to fill out to learn more information, right? You could schedule a phone call to do your own custom tailored demo or just request more information around the route optimization capability. Oh, I see one more question came through about, okay, what's the cost? Well, that is something that we definitely would talk through with you one-on-one. We'd want to make sure that we understand your needs, all the different types of optimizations that you're going to be doing. Main factors that go into it, just so I'm not completely skirting the question or the answer, is we need to understand how many work orders you're spinning up in a given year, how many appointments you're tying to those work orders, because again, some jobs or certain work orders will have multiple appointments, right? And then how many times you'd be running the optimizer, because that's how the cost is calculated. So we just would want to understand a little bit more data around your specific organization and use case and business. And then we absolutely happy to answer that question for you. But good question. Wish it was as easy as that, but we definitely want to make sure that we're mapping this to the use case and to the customer versus assuming everyone's is the same. So with that, we are at time. This was awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you walking everyone through that. Fill out the form, and then we can talk through anything else you'd like to do. We'll tailor to your organization. But thanks everyone for joining and watching this. If you're watching the recording, happy to take questions as they come up. But thanks all. We'll close the call now, and hope you guys all have a great rest of the day. Thanks.